The fog never really left the river after that night. Locals said it clung to the water like memory itself. Thick, stubborn, refusing to forget. Officer Caleb Ward sat on the hood of his patrol car, eyes fixed on his K9 Hunter, who hadn't moved in hours. The shepherd faced the old Miller's Bridge, muscles tense, eyes unblinking, as if guarding something invisible beneath the dark current. By dawn, his fur was wet with dew, and when the divers finally went down, what they brought up changed everything in Ashwood Hollow. If you like grounded, true-feeling thriller stories like this, stay tuned. More of these every week. The first light of morning dragged a pale ribbon across the mist-soaked river, but Hunter didn't stir. His gaze stayed fixed on the black water beneath Miller's Bridge, a place where the current whispered louder than the wind. Caleb Ward crouched beside him, running a hand through the K9's damp fur. "You smell something, boy," he murmured. The dog's ears twitched, nose low, a quiet growl rolling in his chest. The radio crackled in the patrol car behind them. "Unit 12, what's your 20? Caleb reached over the seat and pressed the mic, still at Miller's Bridge. K9 showing strong focus on the east side. A pause, then Sheriff Dyer's voice, rough from too many cigarettes and too little sleep. "Copy that. Divers will be there in 30. Don't touch anything." Caleb let out a dry breath, leaning against a guardrail. The wood beneath his palms was slick and soft, rotted by rain, river mist, and 100 nights of teenage dares. Miller's Bridge had a story for every whisper in Ashwood Hollow. Lovers' quarrels, broken promises, drownings. No one really knew where the truth began or ended. But this time it was different. Hunter had refused to leave. When Caleb found him here just after midnight, the dog was trembling, not from cold, but from some animal recognition that something wasn't right. By sunrise, even Caleb could feel it, the same uneasy silence that follows a scream you're too late to stop. A pickup truck rumbled up the dirt road, tires crunching through gravel. Sheriff Dyer climbed out, adjusting the brim of his hat. His face was carved with lines too deep for a man his age. "You look like hell, Ward," he said. Caleb managed a tired half-smile. "Didn't plan on camping out here." The sheriff's gaze moved to Hunter, still fixated on the bridge. "He been like that all night?" "Didn't move an inch." Dyer exhaled slowly, the sound almost lost in the wind. "Reminds me of that night 5 years ago." Caleb's jaw tightened. He didn't respond. He didn't have to. Everyone in town knew what he meant. The case that never closed. The one that took his sister. Dyer watched him a moment longer, then nodded toward the river. "All right, let's see what's got your dog so rattled." The divers arrived shortly after. 2 men in dark suits with flashlights clipped to their shoulders. They unloaded their gear in silence while Caleb filled them in. The air smelled of mud and rusted iron. "Current slow," one diver said, squinting toward the bridge pylons. "Shouldn't be too deep out there." Hunter barked once, sharp and sudden. Everyone froze. Then he lunged toward the embankment, straining against his leash, claws tearing through wet soil. "Whoa, whoa. Easy," Caleb called, holding him back. But Hunter wasn't listening. He pawed at the edge of the bank, whining, nose pressed to the ground. The dog's urgency wasn't confusion. It was recognition. "Right there," Dyer said quietly. "Mark that spot." The divers nodded and slipped beneath the surface. The river swallowed them whole. Only the small bubbles and faint glimmers of their flashlights betrayed where they were. Caleb watched from the edge, hands buried in his jacket pockets. Minutes stretched. The fog began to lift. Somewhere in the distance, a woodpecker tapped against a dead tree, the only sound breaking the hush. Then one diver surfaced, coughing, got something. The other followed, dragging something to the water, long, heavy, wrapped in black plastic. Caleb's stomach turned. He didn't move, didn't breathe. They pulled it onto the bank. The sound of the tarp scraping against wet gravel was too loud, too raw. Sheriff Dyer crouched beside it. His gloved hands hesitated before peeling the plastic open. Inside was a human arm, pale, bloated, tangled with weeds. No one spoke. Even the river seemed to pause. Hunter sat down, whimpering softly, eyes locked on the arm like he knew exactly who it belonged to. By afternoon, The forensics team had cordoned off the area. The whole town knew before the sun hit its peak. Small towns don't keep secrets. They trade them. Caleb leaned against his cruiser, watching the coroner's van pull away. His throat felt tight. He could still smell the river on his clothes, metallic, cold, alive. Want to tell me what's eating at you? Dyer asked, lighting another cigarette. Caleb hesitated. The tarp, the way it was tied, that same triple knot we saw in the Daniels case. The sheriff's hand froze midair. Smoke curled between his fingers. You think this is connected? I don't think, Caleb said. I know. The Daniels case had haunted Ashwood Hollow for half a decade. 2 teens vanished from a bonfire near the bridge. One body surfaced months later. Same kind of tarp, same knot. The other was never found. Until now. That night, the station buzzed with quiet panic. Phones rang. Reporters called, and the mayor's assistant left 3 messages demanding updates before the evening news. Caleb sat at his desk, staring at the evidence photo. The hand, swollen and white, a silver ring still clinging to one finger. A ring shaped like a crescent moon. He'd seen it before. He pushed his chair back and stood abruptly, heading for the archives room. Dust coated the air like old regret. He found the box labeled Daniel's case, 2020, and flipped through photos until he found the one he feared he'd find, a smiling girl beside the bonfire, the same ring glinting on her hand. Leah Daniels. Missing, presumed dead, but that wasn't what made his blood run cold. In the corner of the photo, half obscured by darkness, was another face, his brother's. The air seemed to vanish from the room. Caleb sank into the chair, staring at the photo as if it could explain itself. Eli Ward, his younger brother, had left town 3 days after Leah went missing. Everyone said he couldn't handle the guilt. The rumors had whispered everything from drug debt to running off with stolen money. Caleb never believed any of it. Until now. He grabbed his keys and stormed out of the station, Hunter bounding at his side. The drive to the old Ward family cabin was short. 15 minutes of winding road and dead air. The place had been empty for years, or so he thought. When he turned the corner, light flickered through the window. Caleb stepped out slowly, gun drawn. The porch creaked under his boots. Hunter growled low, a warning that something, or someone, was inside. He pushed the door open. The smell hit first. Stale beer, gasoline, and damp wood. A lantern burned on the table. Beside it, stacks of paper, maps of the river, and photos of the bridge taken from different angles. And in the corner, slumped in a chair, was a man with a scruffy beard and eyes that once mirrored his own. Eli, Caleb whispered. His brother didn't move for a moment, then raised his head. I figured you'd come. Caleb's heart hammered in his chest. You were supposed to be dead. Eli smiled faintly. Yeah, that's what I wanted everyone to think. Silence filled the room, thick and dangerous. Caleb lowered the gun, but didn't holster it. That body in the river, you know something? Eli's jaw tightened. You should leave it alone. Not this time. Eli stood, hands trembling. You don't understand what's happening here, Caleb. It's not just about Leah. It's about what Dad did. Caleb froze. Dad'd been gone 10 years. Yeah, Eli said, voice breaking. And you still don't know why he went down to that river the night before he died. Hunter barked once, loud and sharp. The lantern flickered. What the hell are you talking about? Eli reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a rusted key, tossing it on the table. It's time you found out. It's all under the bridge. Outside, thunder rolled across the hills. Caleb stared at the key, then at his brother. You're coming with me. Eli shook his head. No. If I go near that bridge again, I won't come back. Eli. But before Caleb could finish, a shot cracked through the window. Glass shattered. Eli stumbled back, clutching his shoulder, blood soaking through his sleeve. Down! Caleb shouted, diving to the floor as another bullet tore through the doorframe. Hunter barked wildly, teeth bared. Caleb crawled to the window, catching a glimpse of a dark figure retreating into the trees. Moving fast, too fast to see clearly, he turned back to his brother. Stay with me, damn it! Eli gritted his teeth, breath shallow. You have to finish it, Caleb, before they do. Who? But Eli's eyes were already glazing over. The key slipped from his hand. The sirens reached the cabin 15 minutes later, painting the night red and blue. But by then, Eli was gone. Caleb sat on the porch, rain pouring down his face, the rusted key clenched in his palm. Hunter sat beside him, head bowed. Down by the river, the fog began to rise again, thick, suffocating, alive. And beneath Miller's bridge, something unseen shifted in the current, waiting. Rain drummed softly on the cabin's tin roof, a slow, uneven rhythm that matched Caleb's pulse. The scent of gunpowder and blood still hung in the air. Eli's body had been taken away an hour ago, but his last words wouldn't stop echoing. It's not just about Leah. It's about what Dad did. Caleb turned the rusted key over in his palm, the metal cold and wet with rainwater. Hunter lay at his feet, head resting on his paws, eyes locked on the dark line of trees outside. The sheriff's cruiser pulled up, headlights cutting through the mist. Dyer stepped out, hat low, coat collar turned up. "You didn't answer the radio," he said quietly. Caleb didn't look up. Was busy. Dyer's gaze drifted to the bloodstains on the porch. He didn't make it. No. The sheriff sighed, pulling a flask from his coat. "You want to tell me what the hell happened here?" Caleb met his eyes. Somebody didn't want my brother talking. Inside, the two men stood in silence for a long moment, listening to the storm. "What's that?" Dyer asked finally, nodding toward the key in Caleb's hand. Eli said it's for something under the bridge. Dyer frowned. Under the bridge? What, a lockbox? Caleb shook his head. He said Dad left something down there before he died. The sheriff leaned against the wall, studying him. "You sure you're not seeing ghosts, Ward? That river's taken enough from your family already." Caleb's eyes hardened. "If there's something buried there, I need to know." Dyer rubbed a hand over his face. "All right, but we do this by the book. I'll get a dive team together at first light." "No," Caleb said. "We go tonight." Dyer narrowed his eyes. "You're out of your damn mind. It's pitch dark, the current's up." "Whoever shot Eli is still out there," Caleb cut in. "You really think they're going to wait until morning to cover their tracks?" The sheriff hesitated, then sighed. "You've got an hour. Then I'm calling backup." By the time they reached Miller's Bridge again, the rain had slowed to a cold drizzle. The fog rolled off the river in sheets, thick and heavy, swallowing sound. Caleb parked near the guardrail. The headlights caught the slick board of the bridge, warped and dark with age. Hunter jumped out of the car, nose low, tail stiff, alert. Caleb grabbed a flashlight, the beam slicing through the mist. Dyer followed, shotgun slung over his shoulder. "You sure this is smart?" the sheriff muttered. Caleb didn't answer. He stepped onto the bridge, the wood groaning under his boots. Each footfall felt too loud, too exposed. Hunter stayed close, ears twitching, sniffing the air. Halfway across, the dog stopped. He growled, low, deep primal. Caleb swung the flashlight toward the sound. For a moment, he thought he saw movement beneath the bridge, a shadow against the current, gone as fast as it appeared. "Something's down there," he said. Dyer muttered a curse. "I'm starting to hate that dog's instincts." They climbed down the embankment, mud sucking at their boots. The flashlight caught flashes of rusted metal, old bolts, rotted boards. Beneath the bridge, the air smelled of algae and decay. Caleb knelt beside one of the pylons, running his hand along the slick concrete. Then he saw it. A metal hatch half buried under roots and river sludge. He brushed it clean. A small lock hung from it, corroded but still intact. The key fit perfectly. With a creak that sounded too human, the hatch swung open. Inside was a narrow metal box, sealed with tape. Caleb lifted it out carefully, water dripping from its sides. Dyer crouched beside him. "You thinking what I'm thinking?" "Only one way to find out." Caleb peeled back the tape. Inside were two things. A small stack of Polaroid photos, an evidence tag from the Ashwood County Sheriff's Office, dated May 17, 1998. His father's handwriting scrawled across it. "Keep sealed. If found, deliver to Sheriff Dyer." Caleb looked up sharply. "This was meant for you." The sheriff's face went pale. That's impossible. I wasn't even in Ashwood back then. Caleb stared at him. Then who the hell was? They carried the box back to the car. The rain started again, harder this time, pounding against the windshield. Inside the cruiser, Caleb spread the photos across the dashboard. The first few were the river. Different seasons, same spot. Then came a photo that made his blood run cold. A group of teenagers standing near the bridge, flashbulb harsh against their faces. Leah Daniels was in the center, and standing behind her, younger, thinner, wearing his deputy's badge, was Sheriff Dyer. Caleb turned slowly toward the man beside him. You want to explain this? Dyer didn't move. His jaw clenched. I was here, yeah, he said finally, but not as sheriff. I was a deputy under your father. We were working an investigation, local trafficking, run through the riverboats. Caleb frowned. You never mentioned that. Wasn't proud of it, Dyer said quietly. We were close to exposing someone big, someone who owned half this damn town. But your dad, he got too close. And then he drowned. The rain on the windshield drowned the silence between them. Who? Caleb asked. Dyer hesitated. Earl Daniels. Leah's father. Caleb's stomach twisted. You're saying Leah's father was running the operation? He was moving girls, drugs, using the fishing company as cover. Your dad was building a case, and Daniels found out. Caleb's grip tightened on the steering wheel. So you think he killed my father? Dyer nodded slowly. And when Leah found out what her old man was doing, he made sure she disappeared too. The thought hit like a brick. Leah, his brother, his father, all tied to the same river. Why didn't you ever tell me this? Caleb said, voice rising. Because your father made me promise not to. Said the truth would bury more than it saved. Caleb slammed his fist against the dash. And look what that silence did. Dyer didn't respond. His eyes were distant, haunted. Then Hunter barked sharply from the back seat. Not his usual bark, but a warning. A shadow moved in the fog outside. The glass shattered before Caleb could react. A Molotov cocktail hit the ground near the cruiser, flames licking the grass. Out! Dyer shouted, grabbing his shotgun. They rolled out opposite sides as the fire spread fast, orange against the fog. Caleb hit the ground, rolled, and came up with his pistol drawn. Through the mist, he saw a figure sprinting toward the tree lean, tall, heavy coat, moving with practiced precision. He fired once. The shot missed. Dyer took off after the silhouette, boots pounding through wet dirt. Caleb followed, heart hammering, Hunter racing ahead. The chase twisted through the trees, branches clawing at their faces. The rain turned to mist again, muffling everything but footsteps. Then a flash of movement. The attacker turned, raised a gun. A shot cracked, and Dyer went down. Sheriff, Caleb shouted. He fired twice. The shadow staggered, stumbled, then vanished into the fog. Hunter growled, lunging forward, but Caleb held him back, kneeling beside the sheriff. Dyer's breathing was shallow, blood seeping through his shirt. Stay with me, Caleb said. The sheriff's hand clutched Caleb's sleeve. In my desk bottom drawer, files your father gave me. Don't trust anyone else. Who was it? Who shot you? Dyer's eyes fluttered. Daniels never left. His hand fell limp. For a long moment, Caleb just knelt there, rain mixing with blood, until the forest around him blurred. Hunter nudged his shoulder gently, whining. I know, boy, Caleb whispered. I know. He pressed his hand against Dyer's jacket pocket and felt something, a folded piece of paper. Inside was a photo. It showed the same bridge, same river. But this time, two men were standing beneath it, his father and Earl Daniels, shaking hands. Written on the back, in his father's handwriting, if I go missing, start here. By dawn, the storm had passed. The world felt hollow, drained. Caleb drove back to the station, soaked, burned out, silent. The office looked different now. Smaller, darker, like a stage where everyone had already exited. He sat at Dyer's desk, pulled open the bottom drawer, and found a thick envelope taped inside. Inside were reports, bank ledgers, shipping records, and one sheet marked confidential, a list of names. Town officials, deputies, business owners. At the top was one he didn't expect. Deputy Mark Hensley, his current partner. The sound of footsteps behind him made him freeze. "Morning, Caleb." A voice said casually. He turned. Mark stood in the doorway, coffee in one hand, badge glinting under the fluorescent light. He smiled, the kind of smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Rough night." Caleb's hand hovered near his holster. "You tell me." Mark took a sip of coffee. "Heard about the fire by the bridge. Shame about Dyer." "Yeah," Caleb said slowly. "Real shame." Hunter's growl filled the silence, low and dangerous. Mark tilted his head, unfazed. "You should get some rest. You look like you've seen a ghost." Caleb stared at him, seeing it now. The faint bruise on his cheek, the mud on his boots, the smell of gasoline clinging to his jacket. "Where were you last night?" Caleb asked quietly. Mark smiled wider. "Exactly where I was supposed to be." The room felt colder suddenly. Caleb stood, every muscle tight. "You were part of it. All of it." Mark set the coffee down, eyes glinting. "Your dad tried to expose Daniels. He failed. Dyer tried again. He failed too. You think you're any different? You killed Eli." Mark shrugged. "Collateral." He started digging where he shouldn't have. Caleb's hand went to his gun. "You won't get away with this." Mark chuckled softly. "You still don't get it, do you? This town runs on what's buried under that river. Always has." He turned toward the door, pausing only to say, "If you're smart, you'll let it drown." Then he was gone. Caleb stood alone in the silence. Hunter beside him, the photo of his father and Daniel still in his hand. The fog outside the window began to thicken again, curling, creeping, almost alive. And somewhere out there, beneath the old bridge, the truth waited, waiting for someone brave or broken, enough to pull it up. The town of Ashwood hollow woke to another fog-drenched dawn, but it didn't feel like morning. It felt like an echo of something unfinished. The river was swollen from the storm, whispering against its banks as if it carried secrets upstream. Caleb Ward sat in his cruiser at the edge of Miller's Bridge, the engine off, the silence thick. The old structure loomed above the water, weather-beaten, scarred, and silent, like it had been watching everything unfold for years. Hunter sat beside him in the passenger seat, head tilted, eyes steady on the dark current below. "You ready, boy?" Caleb asked softly. The dog's ears flicked forward, a low, determined whine vibrating in his throat. The key, now clean, rust polished away, hung from Caleb's fingers. He'd barely slept since Dyer's death, his mind replaying every word, every clue. If I go missing, start here. He'd spent the night poring over Dyer's hidden files, tracing names and dates until the lines formed one story, ugly, simple, and true. The river hadn't just been a dumping ground. It was a ledger, a place where men erased what they couldn't control. And every erasure led back to Earl Daniels and the deputy Mark Hensley. The first sunlight broke through the mist as Caleb crossed the bridge, Hunter pacing at his side. The air smelled like rust and rain. Below, the water shimmered faintly, golden where it caught the light. At the far end of the bridge stood a pickup truck, old, dented, familiar. Mark leaned against it, one boot propped on a rail, a cigarette burning between his fingers. His uniform jacket was gone. Instead, he wore a dark raincoat and a pistol holstered at his hip. "Didn't think you'd come alone," Mark said without turning. Caleb stopped a few feet away. "Guess you don't know me that well." Mark smiled faintly, blowing out smoke. "Oh, I know you better than you think. You're your father's son, through and through, always needing to drag the truth out into the light, even when it burns everyone around you." Caleb's hand brushed the grip of his gun. "You shot my brother." Mark flicked the cigarette into the water. He forced my hand. "Eli was going to take the files to the press. I couldn't let him destroy everything we built." "We." Mark finally turned. His eyes were calm, almost pitying. "Earl Daniels might have started it. But after he died, someone had to keep the wheels turning. Money doesn't just disappear, Caleb. It flows like this river. You killed Dyer, too." Mark's smile faded. He stopped following orders, started believing he could fix things. "Same mistake your dad made." Caleb's jaw tightened. You talk too much for a man who's about to drown. Mark laughed softly. You think you can prove anything? Half the people on that list you found are still in office. The rest are dead. And you? You're just a grieving cop with a dead brother and a bad temper. Hunter growled, stepping forward. Careful, Mark said, resting his hand on his gun. Wouldn't want to add another name to that list. The wind picked up, rippling across the water. Caleb took a slow step closer. You know, there's one thing I don't get. Mark raised an eyebrow. What's that? If this is about power and money, why bury it all under a bridge? Mark's expression shifted, a flicker of something like fear crossing his face. Because that's where it started. He turned, staring down at the river. 27 years ago, your father and Daniels made a deal. They were supposed to shut down the trafficking line, burn it out. But your old man, he got greedy. They started running their own shipments. Then your father tried to back out. Caleb's pulse thudded in his ears. You're lying. Mark shook his head. I've seen the logs, Caleb. Your dad took the first payoff. When he threatened to go clean, Daniels had him silenced. You think your father was a hero. He wasn't. He was just another man who thought he could control the current. The words hit like stones. For a long time, Caleb said nothing. The bridge creaked under their weight, the river murmuring below. Then quietly, he said, You shouldn't have come here. Mark barely had time to draw before Caleb fired. The bullet hit his shoulder, spinning him backward into the railing. The gun clattered to the boards. Mark cursed, clutching the wound, blood blooming through his coat. Hunter lunged forward, teeth bared, stopping inches from Mark's throat at Caleb's command. You think killing me changes anything? Mark spat, wincing. There'll be another me by next week. Caleb didn't answer. He stepped closer, eyes burning with something old and tired. You're right. The system's rotten. But this river doesn't need another body to feed it. He reached down, grabbed Mark by the collar, and dragged him toward the edge of the bridge. The man struggled, kicking, swearing. What are you doing? Making sure you see what you built. Caleb forced him down the slope, through the mud, until they reached the metal hatch beneath the bridge. The one Eli's key had opened. He ripped it wide. The box inside was gone. Only a length of chain remained, leading down into the murky water. Mark's face went pale. Oh, God! Caleb pulled the chain. Something heavy rose with it, a rusted barrel, sealed shut. He pried it open. The smell hit first, sweet rot and gasoline. Inside were bones. Dozens of them. Children. Mark staggered back, shaking his head. That's not supposed to be here. Caleb's voice was low, steady. You said the river keeps what we bury. Guess I decided to give this one back. They both turned at the sound of engines in the distance, multiple vehicles approaching fast. Mark's eyes widened. You called them? I didn't have to, Caleb said. Dyer did. Before he died, he sent a copy of everything to the State Bureau. Sirens cut through the fog. Closer now. Mark backed away, stumbling toward the river's edge. You don't understand, he shouted. They'll kill me. You think I'm the only one. Caleb raised his gun again. Then maybe you should have thought of that before you started killing everyone else. Mark's face twisted with something between rage and terror. You can't stop it, Caleb. This river runs through everyone. He turned and bolted. Caleb fired, missed, and Mark dove straight into the black water. For a moment, there was only the splash, then ripples, then nothing. Hunter barked once, sharply, and fell silent. The current carried Mark away. By the time the state units arrived, the sun was breaking through. Men in dark jackets swarmed the site, photographing, collecting, uncovering. The riverbank became a graveyard of secrets. Barrels, bones, ropes, faces drained of color. Caleb stood apart, watching. He gave his statement. He told them everything, except the one thing that mattered most, that his father's hands weren't clean either. He wasn't ready to let that truth go. Not yet. Hunter sat beside him, muzzle resting on Caleb's knee. The dog had stopped growling. Now he just looked tired, like his handler. You did good, boy, Caleb whispered, stroking his fur. One of the state agents walked up, clipboard in hand. "We'll need you to come in tomorrow for a formal debrief, Officer Ward." Caleb nodded. "Yeah, tomorrow." He didn't go home. Instead, he drove out to the river one last time. Evening light spilled across the water, turning it gold and red. The bridge stood quiet, its boards still wet from the morning. Caleb sat on the railing, staring down at the current that had taken so much and given back worse. He took the crescent moon ring from his pocket, Leah Daniels' ring, and held it between his fingers. The metal caught the fading sun, flickering like a heartbeat. He whispered, "You can rest now." Then he tossed it into the river. The ripples spread wide, then disappeared. Hunter whined softly, brushing against his leg. Caleb smiled faintly. "Let's go home." They started back toward the cruiser. Halfway across the bridge, Hunter stopped, turned, and sat facing the water. Caleb paused, watching him. "Something wrong?" The dog didn't move, just stared, silent, waiting. Caleb followed his gaze. Beneath the surface, the sunlight shimmered oddly, bending in waves, like something just beneath had shifted. A pale hand floated up for a second, fingers open, then sank again into the dark. Caleb froze, breath caught in his chest. The river went still. Hunter whimpered once, low and long, before finally turning away. Caleb looked back at the water, then at the sky, and whispered, almost himself, "Some things don't stay buried." He got in the cruiser, turned the key, and drove off as the fog began to roll in again, swallowing the bridge behind him. Days later, the story broke statewide. Ashwood Sheriff's Office tied to 20-year cover-up, multiple arrests, federal investigation underway. Reporters called him a hero. The town called him cursed. Caleb didn't correct either one. He transferred out quietly a month later, moved to a smaller precinct 2 counties over. No press, no cameras, just quiet roads and long nights. But sometimes when the mist rolled across the fields just right, he swore he could smell the river again, cold and iron sweet, and hear the faint sound of Hunter's low growl in the dark. He'd wake, heart racing, the same thought always waiting for him. The river keeps what we bury. And some nights, when sleep wouldn't come, he'd drive out to the nearest bridge, park beneath it, and sit with Hunter at his side until the first light touched the water. Because somewhere deep down he knew the river was still watching, and it wasn't done with him yet.